Hey everyone,
Hi.
sorry for the delay. Back again with another episode of the weekly SEO. Today we have Lidia Infante. I'm not sure if this kind of word exists, but I guess she's a multi-event speaker because she was featured on Brighton SEO last year on September, I guess. September or October, I don't remember exactly. So also in Absolute Digital Media podcast, it was a podcast as I remember, Calicube, etc. So there is a ton of resources from Lidia Infant, and also she was senior international SEO lead at Rise at 7, and now she is at Big Commerce. If I am wrong, just correct me, please. So that's what I can share with you about Lydia. But Lydia, you can tell us something we don't know about you.
Well, in my slides, I have a bunch of
Here
stuff
is
that
it.
you can learn about. Well, this is the boring stuff. So this is the more professional bit. I actually started out my career in PPC. I think most people in SEO did, but don't admit it. And I've been working in SEO for about 8 years, mainly in house. And I got really into it when I launched a women's rights magazine that was sort of famous for a bit in Spain. It was called Locas del Coño, which is an extremely inappropriate name to name a business. So we're not going to translate it. But yeah, that's a bit how I got into SEO. As a fun fact, stakeholder is one of my least favorite words ever because I feel like I got into this industry to be like a nerd, focus,
Yeah.
working hard. And I've ended up having to speak to many, many people all of the time and convince them of the value of the work that we do. But hopefully, that experience that I've had is going to help you who are watching sell the value of what you do as well.
Yeah.
And for the more
Speaking,
fun bits, oh, sorry, go ahead.
speaking of women rights magazine, I forgot to mention you are very supportive when it comes to women in the SEO community. There is a bunch of tweets if you check SEO woman on Twitter. So check it right now, you will see. And also, you can ask some questions, drop them down in the chat. Lydia will answer them at the final.
Yeah. Anything that you want to cover, I'll answer it
Yeah.
live at the end on the Q&A, or you can message me. So the fun facts about me is that I make root cross stitch art, like the oh fuck yeah that you see over there. I also have a be fucking kind. Well, yeah, there's many. I have many root cross stitches around my office. Um, I can pole dance quite badly, and I'm not being fake humble. I'm very bad at it, but I enjoy it. And 7 years ago, I was very high on anesthesia after surgery, and I adopted that beautiful cat by accident. No regrets.
Cool. You are so kind.
Um, so yeah, let's talk about what we will cover in this one, shall we?
Yep.
We're gonna talk about search intent. So search intent has become a bit of a buzzword, and we don't really do anything with it most of the time. So my aim is to give you a bit of a framework to bring search intent into your business, into your reporting, into your KPIs. Basically, help you turn the buzzword into actual action. So let's start with what is search intent. There's a million definitions out there, but basically, the user that's taking their time putting a query into a keyboard is trying to get something done. That's the intent. Satisfying search intent means that when the user put the query down, they went to your website and they don't have to put the query down again because they've managed to do what they were trying to do there. So that is the no bullshit approach. Search intent is just what the user is trying to accomplish when they're typing in the query. But then, like, there's a gazillion types of intent and different frameworks. Each framework has their own definitions and their own little types. To be fair, most of them are very similar to the classic marketing funnel, which is good because it helps us communicate it internally within the business better. Um, but just so you know, I'm gonna show you three different frameworks of search intent, and what I like about them and how to choose the right one for you. We've got this. There's one by Sistrix. It's the one over there at the top. Actually, let me see because the next slide might be a little bit better for it. We've got the See, Think, Do, Care framework, which is a framework that's quite famous. You can access it on the Think with Google website. They have a super good explanation for it. And I'm going to bring you back later when we talk about KPIs. What I like about this framework is that it works really well with cross-functional teams because it's super straightforward. The user is trying to see something, like get a quick answer or something informational. The user is thinking of something, and that's the consideration phase of the classic marketing funnel, where they're trying to look at um, if they want an iPhone 13 or an iPhone 12. Basically, do something is when they're trying to buy it, and care is thoughts and questions that come afterwards. So that would be the retention and advocacy part of the funnel. That's just one of the frameworks. There's also a really good framework by Systrix. It's the No Simple Visit website and do. What this means is no and no simple are two types of informational intent. The user is just trying to learn something. No simple is when the user can learn it without clicking into your site. For example, how many calories are in a mango? If you type that, I'm guessing that Google's going to give you just the answer on the SERPs. Visit is when you're trying to go to an actual physical business. So this is a really good framework if you are quite heavy on local SEO, or you have a brick and mortar business or several, and you want to track how you're satisfying user intent and user queries for it. So florist near me or best florist in Manchester. Well, that one wouldn't be quite right, but someone that's trying to get to a specific location. And then the website is the same kind of intent, but online. So when you type Facebook into Google, you're not actually trying to learn anything about Facebook. You're just using Google as a door to getting to where you want to go, which is Facebook. That would be that comes up in very clearly on the next um, framework that I'm going to tell you about. But then you also have the do one. It works the same as with the see, think, do, care. This is when a user is just trying to buy something, book something. They're trying to accomplish an action. Then you've got, and this is probably my personal most used, is a commercial, navigational, transactional, informational. It's really good if you have a long buyer journey. So, for example, when we're talking about informational, it can be calories in a mango. When we're talking about commercial, you're trying to learn more information that's going to lead you to a purchase. So that it's very, very solidly in the consideration phase. Then the navigational would come to match the website intent of the previous framework that we've seen. Transactional would be the do on the other ones. So for the most part, all of the frameworks usually carry something along the lines of information and buying. That's in common for all of them. Then usually a navigational one to understand that the user wants to go to a site. The Facebook example is really good. If we were thinking of all of those queries, people typing in search Facebook on search that are trying to learn something about Facebook would be mistaken, massively mistaken. And that's really common for branded queries as well. Um, there's going to be one that's good for you. In my opinion, seeking the care is really good for cross functional. The one that includes the visit one is really good if you have strong focus on local SEO and a physical business. Um, commercial, navigational, transactional, informational for me covers really well everything SaaS and e commerce, and it's quite of a good 361. But if you're working in an old fashioned corporation, I recommend that you just use the classic marketing funnel. right? And be very clear with your stakeholders about what exactly you mean when you're talking about intent and what you're trying to get done. So once you've chosen your framework, you're gonna have to communicate it with stakeholders. There's different ways to go about it. I would recommend that you hold a little bit of a workshop with your main stakeholders, which are not just your manager, their managers, people in business, sales, and support. You're also going to want to loop in content and media into this conversation. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into it later. And I would recommend that you produce a small, quick reference piece, an infographic internally to share with your company so that everybody understands what you mean when you're talking about intent and have a quick point of reference for whatever they need. So now you've done the choosing the framework, communicating the framework. What you're going to need to do now is identify the inferred intent of your keyword list. This is assuming, of course, that you have a keyword list already. You have many options here. Most of the classic 360 SEO tools now allow you to export intent from the tool itself. I quite like the SEMrush one, and that's what I was saying. The navigational, informational, commercial, transactional is the one that SEMrush uses in their tool. Personally, love it. Um, you have different approaches to this. The export for the intent from your tools is a good way to do this in bulk, but no one has quite mastered perfection when it comes to inferred intent. And also you find yourself with the issue that very generic keywords can have more than one intent. Like, for example, maybe the person that's typing Facebook wants to learn the latest news about Facebook, or why the Facebook value dropped so much in the markets recently. um, the more generic the keyword is, the more muddled intent is going to be for you. So, what I recommend that you do is trust Google, which is a weird thing for an SEO to say sometimes, but Google is constantly testing and using massive machine learning algorithms to satisfy user intent. And a very good way of seeing, peeking behind the scenes of what Google is doing is look at the disposition of the SERPs. So if you're seeing maps come up, you know that we are looking at a visit type of intent. If you're seeing videos come up, maybe someone's trying to understand how to get something done, and the tutorials are popping up for that answer. So that is something that you can also export in bulk with well, Ahrefs. You can do it with SEMrush. You can do it with most of the more 360 SEO tools. And for the very, 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 very key keywords for you, I do recommend that you review the top three ranking results and understand how they are meeting user intent, because they're kind of Google endorsed in the terms of, well, they're ranking, right? So Google thinks they are actually meeting that intent. It could be a little bit mixed. That's something that we've been seeing in the SERPs recently, where for those more generic keywords, we see um, some informational pages and some transactional, some navigational. So it is a world to explore. But when it comes to your workflow, you're going to want to have a clear idea of what the intent for your keywords is going to be. So then, now that you have the list of intent for your key keywords, you need to make it happen. That is the trickiest part. And it is very tricky because you need all of your stakeholders to be with you on this. Yes, I am a little bit bitter with my stakeholders, not the current ones or previous ones. Let's just pretend I didn't say that. So how do you bring it into content, into your content? You're going to have to talk to design and content. They have to be on board with your intent framework. So that point earlier on about communicating your framework, your chosen framework, is super important. It really comes to play when it comes to actually doing, when it comes to actually producing that content. Um, you're going to have to embed satisfying user intent in your processes. You likely have a keyword map. You likely have a content brief where you talk about the keywords that you want to target. What is the user trying to accomplish? What is the title that you want to get, or the URL? you're going to want to bring intent into that. So add a field for intent in your content briefs. Super, super, super important. And for me, and for measurement, as we're going to talk about in a second, add a field for intent in your keyword mapping. I've linked a blog post that I wrote about keyword mapping in the Rise at 7 blog. You can check it out. It's right there on the source. But also, another part is you've sent your briefs with the intent, you've told your design team what to complement your written content with. If you need a video or an infographic or an image, now you have to check the content when it comes to you before it goes live on the website. Make sure that you tick off intent as part of your QA process when you're trying to understand whether or not content and design have delivered what you wanted them to deliver. Now, why are we going to put the field of intent in your keyword mapping? Because it's going to help you measure your performance. And this comes back to what I was telling you about. Someone that's trying to get to the Facebook website just wants to do that, right? Someone that's trying to buy an iPhone wants to buy an iPhone. They don't want to learn about the differences between the iPhone 12 and 13 because they've already chosen. A really good way to go about this is using the funnel, but you can also replace all of the names in the funnel with your own, with your chosen intent framework. This doesn't, it's a little bit tiny right now on the screen, so hopefully you can dive into it a little bit deeper. But when we're looking at awareness parts of the funnel, so we're talking about someone who wants to learn how many calories are in a mango. Um, Basically, we can be talking about visits, about views, organic clicks, CTR to try and understand if our meta descriptions and titles are compelling, if we're featuring on the SERPs the way that we want to feature for all of the awareness type of content. Then when we're talking about consideration, which in this section we're talking about engagement, um, it could be pages per session would be a really good way to measure this, or bounce rate as well. So if someone comes into our website for a keyword that's dedicated to consideration and immediately bounce, we are not serving them what they want. It could be the case that someone says differences between the iPhone 12 and the 13. Sorry, I'm stuck on iPhones for this. I don't even own one. And we're showing them just the iPhone 13, why you have to buy the iPhone 13. It's normal that the user bounces because we are serving them a type of content that would be more fitting for an acquisition or conversion type of phase. So in this case, choose a KPI for your types of intent, and then you're going to be able to measure the success of your content efforts much more effectively. You're not going to be measuring visits when you should be measuring conversions because a product page is likely to have way less visits than your blog page. Doesn't mean that it's worse, it means that it's doing another function. So it is really important to keep in mind what the goal of your content is in order to measure against it. And a way to structure this is by bringing in intent into the game. So when you are preparing that lovely infographic for your team and stakeholders, when it comes to your chosen intent framework, I advise that you include a section for KPIs. Because that way it won't look like you're backtracking and trying to say that low visits are fine for product pages or low visits are fine for specific SaaS conversion pages. So that is quite important to keep in mind. And that's where I'm at. That's all I had to say about intent today.
Very insightful, Lydia. Thank you very much for sharing. And regarding measuring and content briefs, it's very important to create them detailed. And I still believe we need to create content briefs manually, not with all of them with the tools. Like, okay, you research the keywords by helping of tools, but also you need to create an intent for their keywords. For example, where do you need to include that keyword? On the subtitle, or at the first part of your paragraphs, or something like that. And also measuring is really hard sometimes when it comes to a huge website, because there is a ton of traffic. Yeah, so thank you very much. And
Thank you.
we have a few questions, and we have also 10 minutes, and I will ask the first one. I don't know the second one, if will you understand, because I didn't understand at all. The first one is, as you know, search intent feature came on SEMrush. You use
Hmm.
SEMrush, as I understand. Do you think this feature works properly for each language? This is the exact question, actually.
To be fair, it doesn't work. Nothing works as efficiently in other languages as it does in English, and that is including Google. Um, they've said a few times that their natural understanding of languages in English is way better than it is in Spanish, for example, or French, or German, or anything else. Um, so no, it doesn't work as well as it does for other languages, but they are doing better. I don't know specifically how SEMrush is creating their intent, but I can tell you there's another tool called Keyword Insights who infer intent not from the disposition of the SERPs or from the type of query that's being shown, but from the content of the top 10. Um, they have different ways of understanding what the websites that are ranking are trying to do, but that is a quite fresh approach to inferring intent, and I quite like it, to be fair. Otherwise, you can, if you wanna do this through SERP analysis instead of downloading a list of intent keywords from your tools, what you can do is download the SERP features using the same tools. Just ignore the bit about intent, um, and try to analyze the SERP features by content topic or content cluster that you're trying to rank for with the same page. If that doesn't make sense, tweet at me or just message again, and I'll rework my answer.
Yeah, I guess this guy follows you on Twitter,
Oh,
because he knows you a little bit. And the second question is, I didn't get that, but what's about SEO in searching social media accounts and opening marketing program? Yeah,
I don't understand the
it's
question.
quite odd, right? All right, so I guess we don't have any questions, because it was really clear. And I actually want to ask you something about this search intent. How do you approach on search intent when it comes to video optimization? Like,
To
you
video
create,
optimization,
yeah, video optimization, because there is, I don't know if this is a part of your knowledge, but you might have some ideas. So if you have, you can share them. If not, you just ignore. So how do you approach when it comes to video? I don't know, title, the description on YouTube or in other platforms like Vimeo, or just inside video?
yeah. So I would do it quite similarly, to be fair. I'm thinking of concepts around video. So if I was working on influencer campaign, right? There's a YouTuber that's doing something fantastic, pay them a little bit of money, and they have my product on display or they use it for something. Um, in that case, I would be measuring views and I would be trying to track whether this had any impact on my brand awareness, right? Because that is the goal of that specific video. It is an informational, an awareness goal rather than consideration or conversion. Um, but then there might be specific type of queries that require video to answer them. For example, I've recently gotten into gardening and I wanted to know how to transplant my Hoya over the weekend. I went on TikTok. I literally searched on TikTok. This is something that I had never done before, but I'm quite satisfied with how the TikTok algorithm knows me. The way that they the aesthetic of the videos, and the fact that I know it's going to be a very short video, which is what I wanted. I don't want an encyclopedic knowledge. I just want to keep my Hoya alive. Um, so in that case, I did search there, and I went back to Google, but just on my way to going to YouTube, I knew that I wanted to receive this information on video, and it wouldn't be just as valuable to me if it wasn't video. If it wasn't writing, I'd be more confused because I wouldn't really know how much I need to strip the roots out of the root rod that they had or that kind of thing. Um, so I would say a good way to approach, there are several layers to this question actually. So do I have to respond to this query with a video or not? A good way to go about that is SERP analysis. And then how am I going to meet my user intent with the video? It's very similar as how you would do it with an article. If you understand what the user wants, you are going to be able to provide it. Otherwise, there you might, it's hit and miss if you don't understand what the user actually wants to get from that query. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, pretty good explanation. Thank you very much. So that's it. All now we have a pretty cool newsletter. You can get subscribed via just enter boostras.studio/subscribe. We send them bi-weekly, so there is no spam, just useful resources. So just subscribe. And the next slide is thank you very much to all of you. And Lidia, you are out of this world.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us.
It was lovely. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. Stay safe. Peace.